Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, a lot of you have been waiting for this knife review. This is the Cold Steel Fin Wolf. I had one person that's been commenting in every video, when are you going to do the Fin Wolf? Right now. Right this second. So, let's talk about this knife. I put this knife back in its original packaging here, just so that you guys can see how I got it. It is kind of a clamshell packaging as opposed to a traditional box. And all the specs are right here, which is nice. So pause right there if you're curious about that. But yeah, let's break it open and see what's up. And you can also pause there if you want to read what they have to say about it. But essentially, what we have here is a very unique folder, okay, in that this has a Scandinavian ground blade. Now, if you don't know what that is, I will discuss that a little bit more later in the video. But first, I just want to talk about just some general experiences I have with the knife. I use this knife a lot because it does have a Scandi grind on it, which is what Scandinavian ground blades are referred to as Scandi grinds for short. I did use this pretty damn hard for two reasons. Not only just because of the blade style, but also because this does have the Triad lock. If you're not familiar with Cold Steel's Triad lock, basically it's a lock back, but they have a separate pin that goes through the back here, okay, so that it doesn't actually meet up with the lock bar, okay. Very interesting design, extremely strong. There's plenty of people out there that do testing on the Triad lock. Of course, if you're watching any of the Cold Steel, proof type videos, I forget what they're calling them these days, but they're hanging on these things and hanging weight off of it and stuff. Extremely tough. I would venture to say that I don't think anyone's ever really broken a Triad lock under normal circumstances, and a lot of people don't even break them trying to break them. So yeah, very interesting. But overall, it's a very good design. This whole design, I mean, even the name Fin Wolf, Fin short for Finnish or Finland, because this knife is very much copying a puukko design. Again, if you're not familiar with that, basically a Finnish or traditionally a knife from Finland, very much used for hunting and fishing and a lot of different outdoor stuff, mostly fixed blades. That's what makes it so interesting, is that this is a folding knife, but basically mimicking a fixed blade design. Not only in the blade shape, of course, the grind specifically, but also down in the handle here, you see the little sweep, extremely common in puukko knives. Not always a guard. That's a nice little touch though, having a guard on there. Really kind of locks the hand in very nicely, but a lot of the puukko knives generally do have just kind of a straight area here as opposed to an extended guard. But they almost always have a sweep on the end, okay? But pretty interesting. You can see it does have ambidextrous thumb studs on there. All right, there is a little bit of a cutout in our handle here, so you can sweep down and grab that thumb stud. It's on both sides. All right, so naturally when you go to get it, there's nothing in the way there, like the little cutout. Okay, so that's very nice. It is very smooth in opening and closing it. Okay, it does lock up perfectly, as you expect from all the Triad locking knives. As far as our handles here, this is what they call their Griv X, which is essentially just, a synthetic, a very hard plastic. It's the same as a Grivery, I believe, or what they used to call Grivery, but they're always changing the names up at Cold Steel. This does have metal liners, all right, which are nestled inside there. Might be hard to see. All right, let me see if I can get a better shot by zooming in. But there is some metal inside of that plastic, so it's not just plastic. So that adds a little bit of strength to this design. You can see a puck clip on here. Puck clip holds pretty nicely. I'm not usually a fan of Cold Steel clips. In this particular case, there's such a light grip on this handle that it actually is pretty damn smooth, and I don't mind it in this particular setup. Some of the Cold Steel knives in the past, I've had a lot of different problems with the clips just holding on too tightly. So when I go to pull them out of my pocket, it's a struggle. Not with this, not at all. This carries just the same as most other knives out there. It does have a nice smooth surface where this comes in contact, and although it's a strong clip and that it's not going to break or bend easily, it does move enough so that it's easy to get in and out of the pocket, which is very nice. As far as carry, you can see it's not a very deep concealed carry at all. but not really designed, you know, specifically for that. Is a big lanyard hole on the bottom here if you want to add a lanyard, of course. And as you can see, the cutout here, it is swappable to left side carry. As you see, it comes tip up, right side carry when it's brand new. So yeah, very comfortable to hold, fairly lightweight, 3.4 ounces. You really don't feel that all that much. But I really like the knife. What's so unique to me, again, is the fact that we have a Scandinavian ground folder. Very, very unique. You usually don't see that. All right, our blade steel on here, as you saw maybe on the package, it's a AUS 8A, totally adequate for its purpose. Just pretty unique. All right, guys, so I grabbed a paper and a marker here because I want to better explain this, because what makes this knife so special is the fact that it does have a Scandi grind on it, which is very unusual for folding knives. You usually only see that in some fixed blades. All right, so I'm going to try to explain this a little bit easier for you guys. If you were to look at this blade like this, okay, a straight on angle, and you blew it up, so it was, you know, magnified X amount of times, so you can really see what these angle changes are. All right, so let's keep that one over there. This is knife 1, this is knife 2, and this is a spada is just representing, you know, most folding knives. Most folding knives have a grind, okay, obviously, it's where you make the steel thinner, and at the very edge, there's a second angle change, okay? So up here is just the flat blade, you know, before anything is done to it. You remove metal to make it nice and thin, and then you come up with another edge so that you can get it even thinner. And that's what creates a super thin edge, which is able to cut things, okay? So on a traditional knife like this Espada, again, if you're looking at it from this angle, magnified, you would see this. This here is the flat part, okay, right here. Then we have an angle change. All right, in this case, it happens to be hollow ground, so we're going to do kind of a curve here, but it kind of curves in, okay? Now, the second angle change is our cutting edge. Now, this is a totally different angle from this, okay? So we have our flat, we have our first angle change, and our second angle change, or our bevel, right? And in most cases, this angle right here is usually 20 degrees, okay? So 20 degrees, and that's why it's called a 40-degree edge, because it's both sides together, okay? 20 and 20 is 40. Sometimes companies like Spyderco, people tend to seem like their knives are sharper, or they believe their knives are sharper because they actually have a thinner edge. Instead of 20 degrees, it's actually 15 degrees on this edge, which makes a 30-degree edge altogether. Okay, that's just a reference there for different knife company that doesn't do 20 degrees. But this is the most common, is 20 degrees for our very edge. Okay, 20-degree angle. With the Finn Wolf, it's very different in that we have our flats, okay, and I'm making them longer because you could see the grind starts a lot higher towards the edge here on a traditional knife, especially like this Espada, whereas the flat part of the knife is much wider on here, okay? So we have our flats, right, just like over here. Let's put an F there for flat. This is our first angle change, and on this knife right here, our first angle change is our only angle change. There's no second angle change right here, okay? Whereas most knives, there's a second one, which is our actual edge. This comes down, so if this is a 20-degree angle, this is a 0-degree angle. There's no angle there whatsoever. It doesn't exist, okay? So that's the difference. That's what a Scandinavian ground blade is once they start grinding, it comes all the way to the edge, okay, until they meet, basically. So there is no secondary edge on this as compared to a traditional edge like on this Espada. All right, so let me hold it like this so I can get it to focus better. But hopefully that explains it. So we have our flat, right? We have our first grind and then the second grind. Whereas this, we have our flat and then our first grind, which is our only grind. So that's what a Scandinavian ground blade is. And traditionally, it has a very wide flat with basically just a thin grind that goes all the way up to the top. That comes out to a 0-degree edge. All right, so I hope I explained that right. My artwork here is not perfect, but hopefully that explains it a little bit better. All right, so I grabbed a Mora here for comparison. This is a Swedish knife, of course, very familiar, probably the most common brand of knives that use Scandinavian ground blades. All right, I want to give you a comparison here so you can see the similarity here. Not only just in design, very straight spine of the blade, okay, totally straight down here, not too much belly, and then right around here is when you start to get that curvature up. Okay, it's just a very traditional design on blade. And you can also notice again that the flat part of the blade is very wide and our grind is very shallow here. All right, so it's just basically a thin strip, but there's no secondary edge. All right, and that's basically what they're going for. They're going for this style of knife that's been used for many, many years, all right, but in a folding package. All right, so let's talk about price here for a minute. These sell anywhere from $30 to $40. On average, like 30 to 35 is more like it. I know they're on Amazon for 30 bucks right now, and a lot of the dealers that I usually go to are about 35, 40 bucks. You know, so that's great. 30 bucks, $35. I mean, that is a pretty good deal. It's an extremely strong knife. The blade steel is just kind of you know, it's on the lower end of the spectrum, but definitely doable. Comes razor sharp. It's lightweight, you know, good ergonomics. And like I said, extremely strong lock. What's the downside? Every knife has a negative, right? Well, with this one, the Scandinavian grind, although it's very cool and very purposeful for a lot of different people, the one downside with it is the sharpening. Now, some of the dealers' sites that I saw actually said that it's easy sharpening. I have to disagree. This is something that definitely takes a little bit of skill, because what most people end up doing is when they're trying to sharpen this knife, they're going to create a secondary angle on accident because they're probably used to sharpening knives with a second angle or a second grind, okay, for their edge. It does take some finesse. It's not terribly difficult, but I would imagine that most people who own these knives are probably not going through the right process to sharpen this properly. It's a little tricky, so if you're really not into sharpening, have no interest in sharpening, never liked it, it was always difficult to you, this knife is probably not for you. Cold Steel does have multiple different models that are very similar to this with more traditional style blades. So in my opinion, the only real drawback to this knife design is that edge. What makes it cool is also something that hinders it for, I would say, the common person. If you're a knife person, and like I said, you have you know, a little mini hobby in sharpening your knives and you know what you're doing, totally fine, not an issue at all. But for the average person, once this thing eventually goes dull, and it will, you know, having the AUS 8A, it's not gonna take forever for this thing to dull up on you. When it comes time to sharpening, you're more than likely gonna change that edge angle, okay? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the only downside, the only reason why you may not be interested in this knife, other than its looks. If you like the way it looks and you're okay with sharpening blades and you want to invest the time to learn how to sharpen a Scandinavian ground blade properly, then yeah, I'd say go for it. I've always been a fan of Cold Steel knives. Not every model is a winner. I like most of what they do, but there's two things or two reasons why I like Cold Steel so much in general, as opposed to, you know, compared to other companies. Number one is they always strive to make the strongest knife designs possible. That's always been a big priority, is make sure this thing, if it's a folding knife, make sure it's not going to fold on you, you know, and that's very important. And number two is Cold Steel historically has always copied a lot of really traditional knives that has worked for millions of people in all different countries all around the world for hundreds of years. You know, so I mean, some people see that as a negative, like, oh man, why are they copying all these different designs? Because they work. These are literally knife designs from all around the globe that have worked for centuries. So why not? Why not copy them? So I think that's awesome. But anyway, yeah, Finwolf, definitely a cool blade. The only catch there is you gotta learn how to maintain that zero edge. And I think that's something that's difficult for some people who are a little bit newer to sharpening. Not necessarily knives, you can been around knives forever, but if you never sharpened a zero edge, it is a little bit tricky. So that's my only caveat to suggesting buying this knife. But anyway, that's all. So of course, if you have this knife, let me know down in the comments what you think of yours. Mine's been great. Because I do strap my knives, I haven't needed to actually sharpen this yet. It's held a pretty decent edge, and I've definitely beat the hell out of this thing. Most times with folders, I'm not doing woodworking stuff, and for the testing of this knife, I got out there just like it was a Mora, you know, or a Puka, and I beat the hell out of it. Made feather sticks, and I didn't really baton with this, although I'm sure you could a little bit with that Triad lock. But I mean, yeah, this definitely exceeds all the needs of a folder. So pretty interesting. So anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have anything to add, any opinions or anything, please feel free to post them down below. And that's it. Hope you guys have a great day. Take care.